liar.
So, the theme I was thinking of today is something that's been near and dear to my heart for many years, which is manifesting and manifesting our best self. And, imagine living the life that you are dreaming of and manifesting your best self. Part of being able to do that is focusing our energy. And each of us has the power to manifest in countless ways. And I'm sure we've all done it in many parts of our lives. And it can be done in subtle and very overt ways, in an inner way and in an outward way. A lot of us just need to learn to focus our energy. And so, like I said earlier, the idea I thought of today was a road trip. Because a lot of people will spend more time planning a weekend getaway than they will spend planning their lives. It's unfortunate, but it's often true that we will spend more time planning a vacation or a road trip than we will ever focus on our own lives. And I have worked as an HR manager. I had this exotic experience of an HR manager or hiring manager by day, and as my mother affectionately calls it, a slumlord at night. I've tried not to be that, but sometimes my tenants would take me down that path. And I found in all these years of interviewing hundreds and hundreds of people and having hundreds and hundreds of tenants, and then I also ran some group homes in a couple of my properties, and I just met all of these different people who I found, for example, having interviewed probably nearly 1,000 people in my life, I probably only received a handful of thank you letters. And if anybody's ever spent any time on how you should prepare for an interview and what you should do, you should always write a thank you letter. I think I've received maybe 6 and interviewed 1,000 people. I also found with my tenants and people I've had that have been friends that there's also a pattern of somebody loses their job, or they're wanting and they're getting unemployment, or they have some savings, or whatever the scenario is, that they will often send 1 or 2 resumes a month on average. I remember once I had somebody that I called when I was running a staffing firm, and I had somebody I called about a job. It seemed like she might be a good match. And she said, "Which job is this?" And I said, told her. She said, "Okay, because I sent my resume to every job in the newspaper." And I thought, wow, I'm going to bring her in for an interview. Somebody who has that much gumption, and because it's so rare. I really would see that people would get to the point where they're running out of their savings, running out of money they sold from their house or their unemployment, and they hit panic mode. And then they suddenly go out and they will take whatever job, they'll hurry and apply for a bunch of jobs that are not really what they want, and take the first one that's offered. And in my own experience, I remember once an HR manager of one of my first corporate jobs, she had said to me that she always keeps her resume updated and keeps an eye out for what's out there, career-wise, because she says that way she knows where she is the best place for her at that juncture. So, unfortunately though, when it comes to our dreams, our goals, and manifesting our best selves and what we want in our lives, so many people are just not sending anything out, not even looking. There's an idea in their head, but they're really not focusing in on it. So the one thing that I learned a long time ago, and that was through my mother, it was on visualizing what we want in our lives. And I think I was around 12, and she said, "Shon, if you want something in your life," she said, "write it down." She said, "research it, visualize yourself having it, make this a habit, and it will happen." And I found every single thing I've ever put that kind of energy into happened. And yet, when we think about our lives, it's important to have a roadmap to where we want to be and where we want to go. And a lot of times people have a goal that they might even mention to others, and something that they know they want, but they haven't ever really written it down. They haven't ever researched it or taken the time to figure out what it is. And if we were starting a business and we wanted to go to a bank and get a loan, we would, to be able to get approved for a loan, we better have done our research. How much is the lease going to be? What's the insurance? What's our business plan? We should be doing that with our own life. you know, because that's how we're going to get accepted by ourselves and the universe and others. And it's amazing. One of the things that I mentioned to a few people here once is, at one point as I was awakening in my own growth and working on goal setting, which is something I was introduced to through a unity-based church when I was 20. I was introduced to masterminding and Jack Boland's concept, who, if any of you are familiar with him, he was a unity minister in Chicago, who was just amazing. And he created this goal setting and masterminding process that is really transformative. And so as I was awakening, and I was part of different mastermind groups, and I facilitated them, and I rewrote the program for a business environment, I found that it really is important to be clear on what we want, but then ourselves write it down. It's even, you know, if one doesn't belong to a goal setting group, and you know, if you just write down what you want every year, it's amazing how when you revisit that, so many things can happen. But if you take the next step of trying to imagine that, or having a picture of it, what that can manifest. One of the things that is part of any healthy goal setting, and masterminding in particular, is gratitude. And it's one of the first steps. And you know, if we were going to go on a road trip together, you know, you took a picture of a beautiful place. Where was that? That was honorable mention.
Colorado.
In Colorado, if we were going to go somewhere like that, we would want to plan for that trip, and we'd want to be prepared. And part of that preparation in any great journey in life is to be appreciative of where we are now and who's helped us along the way, and to write down our gratitude first. And you know, in our culture in this country, unfortunately, we, as wealthy as we are as a nation, we rank pretty low in the happiness index. When they do surveys around the world, there are countries that are, people have been really compromised, unfortunate circumstances that are, they have a different perspective, they accept where they are, and they have found great joy in their lives that we should have as well, but we sometimes are missing it, and I think a lot of it is a lack of gratitude. And back in the 70s and 80s, when everybody had to have a hot tub, and then they had to have, you know, a boat, and then they had to have a trailer and then a motorhome, but it was a lot of these things just sat, you know, and weren't used that often once they were acquired. And there was really a lack of appreciation, and I think in some cases, really knowing what we want. You know, there was a book written called The Happiness Project, and in that, there was one chapter where she focuses in on what really does she enjoy doing, and what does make a person happy. And so often we will find that we're doing what our parents did, or we're doing what the people in our community do, or the people at work do, or our friends do. But what makes you happy? Are you happy going out dancing on a Friday or Saturday night, or are you happy at home reading a book? You know, are you happiest having people over for dinner, or going, you know, out on camping? You know, there's a lot of different things that might feed our soul and make us happy. And sometimes I found myself, you know, when I first started my journey of goal setting and masterminding, when I was in my early 20s, I wasn't really balanced. I had, just like a lot of young people, I was focused on material and relationship goals. And I was really grateful for the masterminding process, because it really did help balance me, because it had categories, like how do you want to feel, what do you want to learn, feelings, career, family, what do you want to learn, where do you want to go. And I set goals in each of those areas because they were there, why not? You know, but I found within 2 years, I was not focused on the material and the relationship. I was focused on a really balanced life in all these areas, and my life had just completely taken off. And I had even done an image board. And it was shocking to me how everything on that board that I didn't think was possible when I created it was my life. And one of the tenets of masterminding is this or something better. And I've always loved that part, because sometimes we have a vision for what we want, and there is something better out there. But you know, as I have gone through this journey with myself and many others over the years, I focused in, especially recently, on another level of, besides just having gratitude. You know, I watched my mother about 10 years ago, maybe 15, she stopped sending Christmas cards. I think she actually forgot one year to get them mailed. But who knows where the truth lies in that story? But she started sending thank you cards for the new year, thanking all the people that made a difference in her lives and meant something to her. And I thought, wow, how empowering! What a great way to make up for not sending those Christmas cards. but I have tried to remember to always honor and thank the people who were part of my journey and helped me reach that. And when you think of setting goals or trying to reach your best self, stopping to not only be grateful for what you have in your past, but to also stop and thank the people who were in your lives, who made that difference for you, or were supportive, or are just there. It has an incredible value, and the energy that you can create by focusing positive energy on the people who have helped you reach your path is instrumental in helping you move forward. It's almost like, rocket fuel behind rockets, helping move you forward. Because a lot of those people, I remember with my son at one point, my uncle, I guess because I had turned him down, had reached out to him to help him go to some party weekend in Los Angeles. So there was a beach concert or something. And unbeknownst to me, that trip was funded. And then I later was told, gee, if he just called and told me about his trip or said thank you, I would have been happy to let him use more miles and do more trips, but he didn't. And I tried to use that as a teaching opportunity for him, and he's much improved now. But I think we can all be guilty of, forgetting to honor those who have helped us reach where we are. And when we have our birthdays, that's one of the areas where I've always been curious now that I've gotten to the point I am. Why do we not tell people what we want? I understand if it's something they might go out and grab and there's only one. But, a lot of our goals and dreams, when we reach out to others, and you find that in a mastermind group, it's amazing how there could be somebody right there who has that and has the ability to help us create that. But when we're honoring and focusing our energy on something positive, a practice that I've been trying to utilize more and more in the last few months is when I say thank you to somebody, I really try to focus energy there and be present and really be thankful. If I open the door for somebody, I'm not just doing that out of autopilot as I was raised. I'm actually honoring the person as I'm doing it. If I say something to a clerk in a store, I'm focusing energy on something positive with them. And I'm showing true interest in them. I'm not just in autopilot, because I think, one of the things I love about living here is the hospitality and the polite nature of the people here, and it's so much more sincere than I feel in other places I've lived. And yet, it's easy when you were raised in that kind of culture that we do go on autopilot on a lot of our courtesies. And I think to focus more attention there, and it's just amazing when you do that and you practice that more, how people light up and how they will want to connect with you more. And if we're talking about trying to set the stage and plan for our road trip, the road trip of our life, and create that roadmap, having that positive energy everywhere we go, where people are inspired, people want to help you, people want to connect with you, it's just going to further you down that path. And, unfortunately, we are who we surround ourselves with. If there's some goal in your life of how you want to be or something you want to accomplish, it's so important that, it's not that we want to burn the bridges of our past life, but if you're around people who have already experienced that or are doing that or know about that, and you ask them or you try to spend time with them or you question them, it's amazing how people want to help others, especially if you're focusing that good energy. And how doors will open, because we are a reflection of those around us. And it's not rocket science, and it's not always something, it's just basic, common sense sometimes to read, but there's also a spiritual component, there's physics involved. Obviously, we've heard many people talk up here about that, and there's an action and reaction, and what we're putting out does come back to us. So, when we've set the stage and we've got our car packed with positive energy, good intention, and we're ready to hit the road and create that roadmap to where we want to go. When I started teaching goal setting in a corporate environment, and then with all of the wayward tenants I've had and friends and exuberant souls in the cities I've moved to and my travels. It's amazing to me how many times, I don't know if any of you, because being here in this environment, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this. I ask people, what I'm curious, I want to know about them. What have you experienced in life? What is your dream? What is your passion? And it's unbelievable how many people have never really fully thought about that or never had anyone ask. And then when they do share with me what it is, I've had a broad enough life and experience that, especially working in HR, I know what people are capable of. I have a really good instinct and I know how to make things happen. I was raised to be solution driven. And when people share with me what they would really love to do, I see it's so attainable for them. And yet they think because they don't have the education, or that they don't have the money to start that business, or that they are a certain ethnic race, or they grew up in a certain social class, that there's barriers, and they're so often artificial, and often they're within their own selves, and often also when people are thinking of something entrepreneurial, their ego gets involved, and they're wanting a storefront when it's not even necessary starting that type of business, or they want some big thing that is some symbol that isn't necessary, and that's where I think when we're talking about, again, if we were starting a business, I always tell people if they are thinking of that to, write down everything. If you're going to buy a house and renovate it, if you're getting inheritance, whatever's going on in your life, you need to do a budget. Because, you don't want to go out, and buy, a big screen TV and a hot tub when you're going to find out you need a furnace. And you need house insurance, and the same thing with a business. You don't want to buy some giant sign and, and a coffee station and, a massage chair when, you're trying to run a butcher shop, and, you might need to get permits, to be able to open, and you bought those things first, But when we talk about trying to set our goals, one of the other things I do with people is, we're often programmed every year annually to set our one-year goals. What I just find that, it can be almost like with the happiness project of, what really makes you happy. It's too short for a lot of people, and I always play this I say a blanket statement, and I do this little practice with people. I said, let's look at 5 years from now. And let's take away any limitations, citizenship, money, education, where you live, family. Let's take all those barriers away. 5 years from now, what would your life be like? What would you be doing? And then I also remind them, I said, I'm not talking about your vacation life. I said, because, reality, we all have our dream of vacation and escaping. but most people, I've had the gift of being around a lot of wealthy people. They need some purpose. Everyone needs a purpose. And it's really surprising if you have somebody imagine their typical week and their ideal life. Waking up Monday where they are, what are they doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, working all the way through the week. Not your vacation week, but your life week. How humble people really are. And what they need and what they would really ideally want. And how really attainable a lot of that is for them. And yet when you set your one-year goals, which I encourage them to do after that, they sometimes find some of those are in conflict with their true self. And so I think sometimes it's important that we step outside the box that we've been in and we look at what we could be. And so, going back to setting the stage for our goals, there are a few things that came up lately, and it goes back to focusing on positive energy. This is so important when we are going down a path. In the mastermind process, you're focused on the positive. You aren't focused on anything negative. Typically, each week you come in, use some affirmations, you state what you accomplished the week before with your group of people that you're meeting with each week, and then you state what you want to accomplish, you imagine that having already happened, and you move forward. Well, if you keep asking that you want to clean out the garage or ask for that raise, you're going to know these people are going to remember, and you might get it actually done. Instead of waiting 3 years and realizing you still haven't taken that step, it can literally happen in weeks or months. And I think that is really a value of having a structured environment that we focus on. Having that right attitude and positive perspective is something that, like, I heard John Tesh on his radio show about a week ago or 2 weeks ago was saying that there was a study recently done on that topic, and it was that people who are positive and have a positive perspective and in a positive life plan, it creates something positive. They found in studies that people who are more negatively focused, it just perpetuating more negativity. It's not that complicated to figure out why that is and isn't. But he then, I thought, took a step that was unusual for him. I don't hear him that often, but he said, in his own life that was so true. And he said, he found that he was a really negative person. When somebody asks you, how's your day? Oh, I'm exhausted. It was a long day, or, to focus in on what's wrong with your life. And he said that, he's made a conscious effort to try to stop doing that. And to refer to something positive. And I, in my own life, I once had a retail business. And if anybody's ever owned a storefront business, the routine, every single person you've ever known or met, every time you see them is going to go, how's your store doing? And it's ad nauseum. It gives you empathy for singers and actors who have to constantly get interviewed about the same topic. And when you're running a retail business, you have it, and if you have any sense, just like in a job interview, you don't want to complain about your last place, you say something positive. Moving forward, when I had rentals, it was a different scenario. I wasn't dependent on retail business. I had tenants that were fixed, and when I would run into people in my life who would ask about that, I would complain. There's a lot to complain about. And especially when you're dealing with low-income tenants. And yet, I found that over the years, the constant cycles of negativity were endless. And I finally one day said, why am I complaining about this so much? This is a part-time job with a full-time income, and I just need to keep it in that frame of mind. I'm on call, but I've got to stop looking at it like it's the end of the world and focus on the positive. As soon as I did that, things changed. It was unbelievable how it transformed and how smoothly things started going. I actually found a property manager that I could rely on, which was unheard of. And my tenants started changing. I also started enforcing late fees. But when we focus the energy on something positive, I know my parents are kind of like Beverly D'Angelo and Chevy Chase in the Vacation movie that they did, and that made them both so famous. And I lived that day in and day out throughout my life. And I know, as far as our attitude and how we handle things, one story that is just a day in the life, literally. But my mother was in this area. She was in Atlanta on a business trip, and she said she was speaking at a medical conference, and there were a lot of doctors that were coming to see her speak. And she was in the nicest hotel she said she'd ever been in her life. And she's one of those adventurers that has to explore everything. And that's why we went on so many road trips when I was growing up. But she said she got up early, like 5 in the morning, went down at 6 and went to the lobby, and the first doorman opens the door and says, "Good morning, ma'am." And the next doorman opens the door and says, "Good morning, ma'am." She walked all over the area in Atlanta she was in and explored everything. And then it's getting close to the time of her meeting, so she goes back to the hotel. The first doorman opens the door and says, "Good morning, ma'am." And then the next doorman opens the door and says, "Good morning, ma'am." Now the lobby's filled up, and a lot of the doctors that are there to hear her speak are out in the lobby having their morning coffee. And my mother lost a bit of weight at that time, so as she steps into the lobby, all these people turned around to look at who just walked in, and her slip falls down around her ankle. So given my mother's nature that this is just a day in life, she just said, I just stepped like this, went down, put it in my purse and kept walking. You know? But with that kind of in mind of her being her attitude, my step-grandmother had moved into a retirement community and was just depressed and feeling like, you know, nothing new was going on in her life and it was so stagnant. And so my mother said, well, let's take her on a road trip. I've been on these road trips. That movie had nothing on us. But anyway, so I had given my parents a nice car because they would never buy one themselves. And so they kept it in the garage and they brought it out for this journey. And my mother found about an hour away these rose gardens that were supposed to be spectacular, and they were going to take my step-grandmother there. They loaded her in the car and headed down the road, and they hit these curves on the freeway, and all of a sudden some smoke starts coming from the dash of the car. So they pulled over, got out of the car, and the car burst into flames and exploded. So, you know, my grandmother starts laughing. She's like, you know, this is so funny and so exciting, you know, and then my mother, of course, is egging this on, you know, trying to make, you know, not let this ruin the day. Because, you know, she knows her force did this, you know. So, you know, the police come. My grandmother got to ride in the back of a cop car. She was 89 years old. She never got to be in the back of a cop car. It was such a wonderful adventure for her. My aunt, who she had no plans to see that day, had driven down to pick her up and take her home, you know. She got to spend time with my aunt. She went back with the best stories to tell the retirement home. My parents, when they called me, were laughing about it. And I was so appreciated that they had reached a point in their lives, especially my stepfather, who things like this, anything that went wrong was the end of the world when I was growing up. And he, I guess, through the school of hard knocks and road trips that my mother put him through, you know, he'd gone to a point where he could laugh too, and they just had the car towed off, and they moved on with their lives. And I always try to keep that in mind, you know, when I'm looking at my own life and how I'm reacting to things. And that's why, you know, it's so important to have an environment like this, where we come and we have people remind us of how to be our best selves. You know, I had a friend that had been a tenant at one time, and he had said, I moved into this group house with these Christian people, and it's a Christian landlady. And I'm imagining something like Baptist, you know, very judgmental way he referred to it. And so I go one day over there, and I meet his landlady, and she looks like Carol Burnett, and she's talking about going to Unity Church. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is not what I thought and imagined, you know, misperception. But, you know, I remember one point, I wish I remembered her words exactly, but I'd come over there to pick him up, and she said, you know, I didn't get a chance to go to church today. And I just missed my weekly dose of, you know, affirmation and positive reinforcement, you know. And I thought, wow, you know, that is so valuable, because we can come to an environment like this. And when I was in my 20s and I was focused on all spiritual growth, I felt like some spiritual environments were too repetitive, and I relearned those lessons. But there is, just like with, you referred to AA earlier, when somebody is in something that is a positive reinforcement, if you step away from it for too long, you know, we can stay resilient and on our path for long periods of time. You know, in AA, I know that people can go, you know, for years, a decade, you know, but then without any positive reinforcement, eventually a lot of people will start to slip. And that's where having our roadmap that we've created, having a group of people that are around us that are doing what we want to do, having people that give us positive reinforcement, and even having a mastermind group. I was in the Unity in Atlanta a couple weekends ago, and I talked to the minister there, and they were preparing to